We're now going to start on the backstitch stage of the design. So not all patterns have backstitch, but some do, to accentuate outlines and details or to add text, both of which I've done here. So first of all, you'll notice that there are several colours of backstitch in this pattern. The backstitch is shown just by lines, not by symbols. So all these black lines around the edge of the dragon that are a bit heavier than the grid lines, and these blue and red lines here, these are all backstitches. And the key will tell you what the difference is. So here I've used blue to show the backstitch in 2 strands. You don't actually stitch it in blue. So sometimes you have to do it in a different colour just so that you can distinguish it. We're going to stitch that in black in 2 strands, this in black in 1 strand. So most backstitch is usually done in 1 strand. We've been cross-stitching up till now in 2 strands. But for backstitch, you definitely need to double check your key as to how many strands you're meant to use. So I've cut my black thread to 12 inches. It can tend to knot a bit with backstitch, so I suggest starting with a smaller length. And because it's 1 strand, we're not going to fold it in half. So I'm just going to thread the one end into the needle. We're not going to fold it in half, which means we can't use the loop start. So instead, going to have to tie the ends in as we thread the ends in as we go. So you can start any way you like. I am going to start here at the beginning of this wing, which is this part of the pattern, and I'm going to go along this line here. So you're literally making a line with the thread. Bring your needle up here and bring it down. And there you have a little line, and every stitch is going to look like that. Now I can't use the loop start, so I'm going to have to sew in my end as I go along. You don't start with a knot at any point, because knots can loosen, they're unreliable, they can make the back of your work lumpy. You should always either start with a loop start or sew in your end. So here I've got my end here. I'm going to put my needle in here for the next stitch, and I'm going to make sure that the thread goes over this thread here, like that. Put it in there. There, can you see the thread went over? It secured this thread, which I've just pulled out a bit. And we're going to keep doing that for a number of stitches to make sure that this end here is really secured. So I've now got, I don't know if you can see, a line of thread here from the first stitch. Then I went under here and up here. So there's a gap here. I'm going to go back to make this stitch, and that's why it's called backstitch. So I've gone back, and I've now got a line here and a line here, so I'm forming a continuous line. Then go back over on the other side, going over this thread, securing it again, just exactly the same stitch as we did before. So I've got 1 at the front and 2 at the back, and then you just carry on like that. So this one, half your stitches are going to be forward, even though they're all called backstitch. So this one's one of the forward stitches. Come down. For this bit, we still need to secure the thread, so it makes it slower at the beginning. Come up here. Make sure you're going over that end to secure it. Then go back. And that's that piece of backstitch done. Tighten that up a bit. Up here. So look at the chart, you can see the line is just going around the edge of the dragon's wing. So I've turned the corner here and gone vertically instead. Now I'm going to come up along again, make sure that I'm bringing this end with me to carry on securing it. And then back here. Along. Just doing it a bit more quickly now. Carry on securing the back. And here again. Now that's probably secured enough now. Sometimes I go on for quite a while to be extra sure, but I think that's secure enough, so we can snip this end off. Then it'll be a bit quicker, not having to keep checking we're sewing that in. Then just carry on stitching, and it forms up quite quickly and gives a nice bold outline to the piece. So I'm going to carry on until I get to this line that goes down the middle, and I'll show you how to do that as well. So the back stitch you always do after the cross stitch. And sometimes I can't seem to get the needle in at the right angle. It's coming there in the middle of the cross. So it's sometimes easier just to come up through a different square and come back, because I can then force down through it. It's just simpler according to how the cross stitch are lying. So yeah, you always do the back stitch afterwards, because then it tends to lie on top after you've done that area of cross stitching. So I'm coming up side of the wing here. Now you can see here on the pattern there's a line of backstitch to show the folded edge of the wing. So I'll just show you how we just do exactly the same, but coming in to the middle of the cross stitches. Here we are. So here the line splits, so we'll have to go do both parts in the end, but I'll go this way. And again, you see you can still just carry on in exactly the same way, making these one forward stitch and untie my thread a bit. One forward stitch here and up through here to make the back stitch here. And so carry on like that. Do all the lines on the dragon. These ones here, you're going to go diagonally across on top of the square. I'll show you how you do that. I'll just bring my thread down randomly here. So here you would obviously you do this when you got here. You just come up here and then go diagonally across the top of the stitch, and it then just gives an extra detailing on top. You can work out what the symbol is in this case because there's not very many symbols, and you can see it's a full triangle. If there's a lot of detailed backstitch, then I always give two separate charts, one with backstitch and one without, so that you don't get the cross stitch symbols obscured by the backstitch. So I'll carry on and backstitch all the way around the dragon. I've now done some more backstitch. I finished off this wing and I'm coming along this wing. And just to show you how to finish off the thread, it's exactly the same as with cross stitch. Simply do the last stitch on your thread and then thread it through the cross stitches that you've already done, like that, to secure it at the back. If I've got enough, just about got enough thread on my needle to go back for a couple of stitches, and that's nicely secured. So I'll carry on round the edge of all the dragon and the eye, and then we'll come back and do the writing, which has fractional cross stitch and French knots.